So why a casserole for two? Well, we're empty nesters, and we're tired of wasting food, but we really like food, and we still like to make it, so I'm trying to pare it down. So I'm going to make a collection of cooking for two videos, and I made a playlist on my channel. So if you just go to the main page of my channel and you hit playlist, you're going to see cooking for two. So let's do this. I have a half an onion, and also, by the way, this can be doubled with no problems at all. I will include the recipe below, the recipe that is for two. So if you want to make it for a family of 4, 6, whatever, just double it. So once I dice up that half onion, I just put it in a skillet and throw it on the stove with a little bit of butter, and we're going to start to saute it. This is 1 ear of corn, and it's a fresh ear of corn. Now if it's out of season, you can't get a fresh ear of corn, then just do 3/4 cup of canned corn that you drain. That's important that it's drained. So I'm going to get all these wonderful sweet corn kernels off of this cob and that little handy dandy device I got there. And we're going to put that in a bowl and set it to the side. Next, we're going to chop up 1 jalapeno. And as you can see, this time I remembered to wear a glove. So once that glove came off, I was scratching the hell out of my eyes, and I didn't even cry. So I'm going to remove the white membrane and seeds. I'm going to intentionally leave a few seeds behind for a little heat, but I'm taking out the most of the bitter heat from the jalapenos. So once I cut them, I'm going to dice them up and slice them up, and then we're going to put them in with the corn. Because jalapenos and corn, that makes for a tasty cornbread. And tamale pie this one turned out just so good. We were so happy with it. And we have enough leftovers for the two of us to have it for lunch tomorrow, and then it's gone. No waste. So here's my onions, sauteing away in my pan. I just put the tiniest little sprinkle of salt in there, and it's just 1 teaspoon of butter. We're going to saw these until they just start to look like they're cooking good, and then we're going to add to it our beef. However, let's get back to our mise en place. While my onions are cooking, I have a can of Chipotle Peppers and Adobo. Now what's a Chipotle Pepper? It is just a smoked jalapeno. And it's in the adobo is the sauce that it comes in. And let me just tell you, this is a deep, smoky, umami heat. It's a deep heat. It's not sharp, punch you in the face kind of thing. But if you use enough of it, the deep, subtle heat will melt your face clean off your head. So I'm only using 1 pepper. And I'm going to cut it 2 ways and dice it up nice. Then I'm going to put it in my sweet little silver little standby prep bowl thing. Because it's important to get all your mise en place done. Double check your recipes always, because I've done it so many times where I forgot to put something in and you're just so upset. So cooking for two. It's going to be a new gig. And I really like it because, we still cook for crowds, and that's fine and dandy. But when it's just the two of us, we just hate wasting food. Now I'm just going to take my knife, and I'm going to dip it in there and get some of that adobo sauce. I'm going to get enough adobo sauce to equal 1 tablespoon. There's tons of heat, but there's also tons of deep, rich, smoky flavor in there as well. So this is an important ingredient you gotta have. Next, I have 1 pound of ground beef. And I get the very lean stuff. This is 93% and 93.7, so only 7% fat. I'm gonna just take my hand, karate chop it like I did, to split it in half because we're only using a half a pound of ground beef. I'm gonna tear it off, then break it up into pieces. So the other half of ground beef, I'm gonna put in a plastic bag and throw it in the freezer. We're not wasting. This is all about not wasting. So I'm gonna break it up just because it gets easier to handle in the skillet. You're not gonna have big chunks of meat flying around. So once we get this going, I'm gonna show you that I did bag up the other half of ground beef. There it is. And I just threw it in the freezer. Bam, there it is. So I'm gonna start cooking the meat, and there's not gonna be a lot of fat. So the good thing about using very lean ground beef is that you don't have to drain it at the end, which is awesome. Because that can be a pain in the neck, and it's 1 less dish to wash. Who doesn't like that? So you can see here now it's starting to cook good. So I'm going to think about throwing in my spices. which I already have pre-measured. So it's almost all of the pink is gone. And it's going to continue to cook for a little bit longer, so we can start adding stuff now. So what are my spices? So far we just have onion and ground beef going. Well, I'm about ready to show you. And you can see I just showed you that there's very little fat going on. The first thing we're going to add is Rotel tomatoes. Rotel tomatoes are basically diced tomatoes with some green chilies in there too. It's very mild. You can get it in different flavor heat levels, so you can get it from mild all the way to hot. I'm only going to use a half a can. The other half I'm saving because we're not wasting food. You can use it in omelets. It's great in omelets. You could throw it in chili if you're going to make chili. Perfect stuff here. So let's stir that around just a little bit. Now looking at it, I thought to myself, I think it needs more. So I'm going to add just a little bit more of that Rotel because I want it to have that red tamale meat look to it. So I added just a little bit more of that Rotel. This is a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin, followed up by a 1/4 teaspoon of granulated garlic, and finally 1 full teaspoon of chili powder. Now you may be thinking, Jimmy Dick, you're going a little easy there on the seasonings, but I'm really not, because bam, here's a flavor bomb right now. That smoked chipotle jalapeno pepper in the adobo, holy moly does that add it. Like I told you before, deep umami flavors. So I'm going to keep stirring this around until everything's well mixed, because we want it to cook together. And so I turn my heat down a little bit because I do want it to slowly cook so that all the flavors have a chance to meld. Super important, because if tamales or anything, they're packed with flavor, especially the meat part of it. So we're going to continue to stir this around until I think everything is combined. Then I'm going to add a tablespoon of tomato paste. I love getting it in these little squeeze tubes because you don't waste it. I hated opening a can of tomato paste and you throw away the rest of the can. Oh, so frustrating. Then we're all about not wasting. So now let's go over and make our cornbread, or the tamale part. So in here we have our corn and our jalapenos. If you've never heard me praise Jiffy corn mix to the gods, then you haven't watched my channel. Jiffy corn mix is the best thing on the planet. All that's in that box right there is heaven dust. So we're going to add 1 egg and 1/3 cup of milk, just as it is described on the packaging. Jiffy corn mix is perfection, I'm here to tell you. And if you add to it, it's very accepting of those flavors. So I'm going to take this spatula and I'm going to give it a stir, and you can see just how quickly this comes together. Before you know it, we're going to be done. However, make sure that you're using a rubber spatula so you can scrape the sides and get all of that heaven dust into your batter. You don't want to waste any of it. It is so good. Woo! It's the only cornbread I make. I'm here to tell you, my hand to Jesus, Jiffy cornbread mix is the best on the planet. So next, we're going to transition back to our meat. Look at this. I think it's done. Most of the liquid has evaporated, and that's what you want. You don't want it sloppy. So let's build this baby up. I have your standard size loaf pan, and to this I'm going to spray in some non-stick spray, and we're going to put in 1/3 of the cornbread mixture. Why 1/3? Because if you look at this pan and most loaf pans, the bottom is more narrow than the top. They kind of spread out as they get taller. So we are going to add 1/3 of it on the bottom, spread it around, get it in all the corners, make a nice base. The important thing is not to leave a gap for the sauce or the meat sauce to run down. Next, we're going to add a 1/2 cup of cheddar cheese. Just a 1/2 cup. This recipe only takes 1 cup. So good. This will help prevent a barrier too between the cheese and the meat and the cornbread. And speaking of meat, you can dump that whole pan. It fits. Then take your spoon and spread it around until it's uniformly distributed in a nice flat, even layer. Because on top of this, what are we going to do? That's right, the other half a cup. Look at that. I am a Picasso. Look at this. So we're going to add the other half of cheese, the other half of the cup of marbled cheddar cheese. You can use any kind of cheddar cheese you want. Sharp, mild, marbled, Monterey Jack with cheddar. It doesn't really matter. Once you get that in place, we're going to add the rest of our cornbread mix. And what I like to do is I like to put a vein right down the middle so I can take my secret weapon out once I get it all in there, because we're not wasting a single bit of this cornbread. Because, woo! Sorry, I'm getting emotional. It's that good. So I'm going to take an offset spatula and I'm going to scrape that spatula clean with my little metal offset one. And then what makes it so, why I use the offset, because if I tried to spread it out with that big old honking silicone spatula, it would just drag the cheese everywhere. This, it really does help. Look at this. It helps spread it all out evenly. I can get the corners in nice and tight. I'm telling you right now, I am a tamale Picasso. Look at this. Painting with cornbread. Now this is going to go into a 375 degree oven for exactly 25 minutes. And when it comes out, heaven on earth, I'm here to tell you. And it's been 25 minutes. Show it to me. Boom! There it is. Look at that. You want your cornbread to be golden around the edges and done on top, where it doesn't sink down. Give it a little tap to make sure it's firm. If you could smell that right now, you'd smack your own face. So let's get to cutting this up. Let it sit for a good 10 minutes to set up. So I'm going to take a spatula and I'm going to cut me a piece right down the middle. And then I'm going to cut it in half too, because, you know, that first piece coming out is always a bear. So I'm using the same spatula, actually. I just went and got a smaller one to cut it in half because of the perfect size. Now I'm going to take the little wee spatula and I'm going to dig out that first piece and look at the second piece. Perfectly cooked cornbread above and below with tasty meat in the middle. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Have a great day.